A black boy with brain cancer receives a Secret Service badge from President Donald Trump. The story follows a boy named DJ, whose life has always been intertwined with a deep passion for law enforcement. While other kids idolized superheroes with capes, DJ spent his childhood admiring police officers, FBI agents, and the United States Secret Service. In his mind, they weren't just enforcers of the law. They were symbols of courage, resilience, and the unwavering strength to stand tall when everything else collapsed. He had watched countless documentaries about their work, memorized every rank and responsibility, and even owned a small uniform that his father, Mike, a former Marine, had bought him. DJ didn't just admire these men and women, he wanted to be one of them. But DJ's life wasn't like that of other 13-year-olds. But DJ wasn't like other children. At the age of 6, he was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer. It came like a sudden storm, ripping him away from carefree play dates and throwing him into an entirely different world, a world of hospitals for drips and endless pain. While other kids worried about their homework, DJ fought daily just to breathe. Chemotherapy days were the longest. The drugs burned through his veins, leaving him nauseated and exhausted, his body too weak to move. There were nights when he curled up in his hospital bed, unable to sleep as sharp, relentless pain gnawed at his fragile body. Sometimes he wanted to give up, but every time he reached that breaking point, he remembered his father's words. "We don't do self-pity in this house. We stand tall. We move forward." And DJ did exactly that. No matter how much he suffered, he never complained. When he could no longer run, he sat and drew police badges. When he couldn't go outside, he watched training videos on law enforcement. When he was too weak to talk, he simply nodded and smiled at the nurses who cared for him. One crisp October morning, DJ sat at the kitchen table, carefully sketching a police badge in his notebook. His fingers trembled from the side effects of his medication, but he held his pencil tightly, refusing to let go. His father entered the room, his expression unreadable. "You're never going to believe who called me today," Mike said, leaning against the counter. DJ barely looked up. "Grandma, the governor." Mike smirked, but hesitated for a moment, his voice turning serious. "Bigger." DJ raised an eyebrow. "Bigger." Mike took a deep breath, locking eyes with his son, President Donald Trump. DJ blinked. "Yeah, sure. I'm serious, kid. He saw a video of you. He wants to meet you." The pencil slipped from DJ's hand. A week earlier, an off-duty police officer in Baltimore had captured a video of DJ standing outside a precinct, shaking hands with every officer before they went on duty. Despite his frail body, despite the pain, DJ had insisted on standing tall. For each officer, he said the same words. "Stay safe, sir. Thank you for your service." The video had spread like wildfire, touching thousands of hearts, but there was one person it had affected deeply. President Donald Trump. That night at Mar-a-Lago, Trump watched the clip over and over. A young boy battling cancer, yet still strong enough to honor the nation's protectors. It struck something deep inside him. He turned to his assistant. "Find out who this kid is." By morning, the White House had DJ's name. When Trump called Mike, he didn't waste time with small talk. "Your son is a hero," he said. "I want him at my event next week." Mike hesitated. He wasn't a political man, but when he saw the way DJ's eyes lit up at the mention of meeting the Secret Service, he knew what he had to do. A few days later, they were on a plane to Florida. The flight was exhausting for DJ. The altitude made the pressure in his skull unbearable and his headaches worsened. But he clenched his jaw, gripping his stuffed turtle, a reminder of the hospital days, and refused to complain. This was too important. When they arrived at Mar-a-Lago, DJ was almost too weak to stand. He leaned on his father for support, taking deep breaths to steady himself. He didn't want anyone to see how much pain he was in. Then a voice rang through the grand ballroom. "Where's DJ?" The crowd parted. And there, standing in the center of the room, was President Donald Trump. Mike squeezed his son's shoulder. "Go on, buddy." DJ's legs trembled as he took a step forward. The uniform felt heavier than usual on his small frame. "There he is." Trump grinned, extending his hand. The toughest young man in America. DJ swallowed hard and shook his hand. Then the moment that would stay with him forever. Trump reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, something gleaming. A badge. A real official U.S. Secret Service badge. I think you've earned this, Trump said, pinning it onto DJ's uniform. DJ's mouth fell open. The room erupted into applause, but he barely heard it over the pounding in his ears. He looked down at the badge, then up at Trump, then back at the badge. You mean it? He whispered. Trump chuckled. I don't joke about things like this. DJ clutched the badge, his fingers trembling. He turned to his father, his eyes wide with disbelief. Mike's voice was thick with emotion. You earned it, son. And in that moment, DJ wasn't just a sick boy in a uniform. He was exactly who he had always dreamed of being. And for the first time in a long time, he truly believed it. DJ held onto the badge like it was the most valuable thing in the world because to him it was. The room was still filled with applause, but DJ barely registered the noise. He could feel the cool metal against his chest where President Trump had pinned the badge. And for a moment, everything else, the pain, the exhaustion, the endless hospital visits, faded into the background. He had spent so many nights staring at the ceiling of his hospital room, imagining himself wearing a real badge one day, and now it was happening. It didn't matter that he was still a kid or that his body was weak. Right now, standing in this room, he felt invincible. Mike, standing a few steps behind his son, took in the scene with quiet pride. He'd seen DJ at his lowest, holding on to life with every ounce of strength he had left. He had watched as his boy fought through the nausea, the surgeries, the endless rounds of treatment that left him too tired to lift his head. And yet, here he was, standing tall before the President of the United States, wearing a badge that meant more to him than anything else in the world. Mike cleared his throat, pushing back the emotion that threatened to rise. He had promised himself he wouldn't cry, not here, not now. Trump clapped DJ on the shoulder and gave him a nod of approval. You're tougher than half the guys I know, he said with a grin. I mean that. The words settled into DJ's heart like a warm ember, something he would carry with him for the rest of his life. He wanted to say something, but his throat was tight, and all he could do was nod. Trump turned to the audience and gestured toward DJ. This young man right here is what courage looks like, he said, his voice steady, commanding. When I saw the video of him shaking hands with those officers, thanking them for their service, I knew I had to meet him. Because that's what real leadership is. It's not about power or titles. It's about heart. The applause swelled again, but DJ barely noticed. He was still staring at the badge, tracing the edges with his fingertips. It felt heavier than he expected, but in a good way, like it belonged there. He thought about all the times he had imagined himself wearing one just like this. All the times he had sketched badges in his notebook, dreaming of a future where he wasn't just a kid in a hospital bed, but someone who mattered, someone who could make a difference. And now, even if just for this moment, that future felt real. As the event continued, people approached DJ to shake his hand to congratulate him, to tell him how much his story had inspired them. A few officers from the Secret Service even came over, giving him serious nods of respect, calling him Agent DJ. He grinned every time he heard it. He could see the pride in his dad's eyes. The way Mike stood a little taller, his chest puffed out slightly. It had been a long time since DJ had seen that look on his dad's face. Pride, not just in him, but in the journey they had taken together. After the event, as they made their way outside, DJ felt the exhaustion start to creep back in. His body was reminding him that, despite the adrenaline and excitement, he was still sick. The headaches, the fatigue. They hadn't disappeared, just paused for a little while. Mike noticed the way DJ's steps slowed, the way he leaned slightly to one side as he walked. Without a word, Mike bent down and lifted him into his arms, carrying him the way he had so many times before. DJ wanted to protest, to say he was fine, but he was too tired to fight it. He let his head rest against his dad's shoulder, gripping the badge tightly in one hand. As they drove back to their hotel, DJ stared out the window, his mind racing. Do you think they'll let me visit the Secret Service headquarters? He asked suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. Mike glanced at him through the rear view mirror. I don't see why not. He said, You're one of them now, aren't you? DJ grinned, but the fatigue in his eyes was undeniable. He wanted to keep talking, to keep living in this moment, but sleep was pulling at him. By the time they reached the hotel, DJ was too tired to make it up to the room on his own. Mike carried him inside, helping him onto the bed, making sure he had his stuffed turtle within reach. DJ lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, still gripping the badge. "Hey, Dad," he murmured. "Yeah, buddy." Mike sat on the edge of the bed watching him. "Today was the best day of my life." Mike swallowed hard, nodding. "Yeah, it was, kid." But as the days passed, the reality of DJ's illness settled back in. The trip to Mar-a-Lago had been a moment of escape, a glimpse into a life he had always dreamed of, but cancer didn't care about dreams. The headaches returned worse than before. The fatigue became unbearable. His doctors warned Mike that DJ's condition was deteriorating, that they were running out of options. Mike didn't want to hear it. He refused to believe it. DJ had fought too hard, had come too far for this to be the end. One evening, as DJ lay on the couch watching an old documentary about the FBI, Mike sat beside him, studying his son's face. He looked so small, so fragile, but his eyes still held that same fire, that same determination. "You still want to visit the Secret Service headquarters?" Mike asked. DJ turned to him, his expression lighting up despite the pain, more than anything. So Mike made some calls within a week. They were on another plane, this time to Washington, D.C. The day of the visit, DJ could barely contain his excitement. He wore his badge proudly, his miniature uniform pressed and perfect. When they arrived at the Secret Service headquarters, agents greeted him with salutes and handshakes. They gave him a private tour, letting him see behind the scenes of the organization he had admired for so long. At one point, they brought him into a training room where agents practiced defensive tactics. DJ watched, mesmerized, his fingers itching to take notes. One of the agents knelt beside him. "You know, kid," he said, "we don't just give those badges to anybody. You're one of us now." DJ beamed, his chest swelling with pride. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a sick kid. He felt like an officer, like someone who belonged. As they left the headquarters, DJ turned to his dad, gripping his badge tightly. "Promise me something, Dad." Mike raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" DJ's voice was quiet but firm. "No matter what happens, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I want them to remember me as an officer, as someone who stood tall." Mike felt his throat tighten, but he nodded. "I promise, buddy." That night, as DJ drifted off to sleep, his badge still clutched in his hand, Mike sat beside him, watching his son breathe. He thought about everything they had been through, the battles, the pain, the moments of joy in between. DJ had been given a badge, but the truth was he had always been an officer at heart, brave, strong, unbreakable. No matter what the future held, DJ had already won. DJ still couldn't believe what had happened. Holding the Secret Service badge against his chest, he felt like he was in a dream. The moment when President Trump called his name, the whole room looking at him, the weight of the badge being pinned onto his uniform. It was all surreal. His father, Mike, had been standing right beside him, his face filled with pride and emotions too strong to put into words. DJ had always dreamed of becoming an officer, but never in his wildest imagination did he think he would be honored by the president himself. After the event, as they walked out, DJ still replayed the moment in his head. "I ain't gonna lie," he said, grinning. "My jaw dropped all the way to the ground. I could barely even pick it up." Mike chuckled, shaking his head. "I bet, son." I bet DJ looked up at him, still wide-eyed. "Did you know? Did they tell you beforehand?" Mike smirked. "Nope. They didn't tell me either. Everyone knew except us." DJ laughed. "Man, that's crazy." The weight of the moment was still settling in when they got back to their hotel. DJ lay on his bed holding the badge tightly. "Dad," he said after a while, "this is the best day of my life." Mike nodded, sitting down beside him. "Yeah, buddy, it really is." The next morning, DJ woke up feeling exhausted. The excitement from the previous day had masked the pain, but now it was back with full force. His head ached, his muscles felt weak, and his vision blurred slightly when he tried to sit up. Mike noticed immediately. "You okay, kid?" DJ forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But Mike wasn't convinced. He knew his son too well. DJ had been battling brain cancer for more than half his life. The doctors had warned them that the disease was spreading, that his condition was getting worse. But DJ never let it stop him. He refused to let cancer define him. When he could no longer run, he found ways to be useful. When his body grew weak, his spirit remained unshaken. But now, as Mike watched him struggle just to lift his head, a deep fear settled in his chest. Later that day, DJ had another surprise waiting for him. He was invited to visit the White House. It wasn't just another tour. This time, it was personal. The Secret Service agents who had watched him receive his badge wanted to give him a behind-the-scenes experience. Despite feeling weak, DJ wasn't about to miss it. "I gotta go, Dad." He insisted. "I can't say no to this." Mike helped him get dressed in his uniform, adjusting the badge proudly. Displayed on his chest. "You sure you're up for this?" he asked. DJ nodded, determination in his eyes. "Yeah, I got this." When they arrived at the White House, Secret Service agents greeted him like he was one of their own. They showed him around, letting him see parts of their operations that most people never got to witness. DJ was in awe, asking questions about security protocols, agent training, and the different departments within the agency. Out of all the police departments, he said at one point, "I think I'd rather work here." One of the agents smiled. "Well, kid, you're already one of us." DJ beamed, gripping his badge tightly. As the visit continued, Mike couldn't help but notice how much effort DJ was putting into staying engaged. He was visibly tired, but he pushed through, determined to enjoy every moment. At one point, when they were walking through a hallway, DJ suddenly swayed his balance unsteady. Mike caught him just in time. "Whoa, easy there," he said, lowering him into a chair. "I'm okay," DJ murmured, but Mike could see the struggle in his eyes. The visit wrapped up soon after, and they made their way back to the hotel. DJ barely made it to his bed before exhaustion took over. He lay there staring at the ceiling, still holding onto his badge. "Dad," he said softly, "do you think they really see me as one of them?" Mike's heart clenched. "Of course they do, son. You earned that badge. You earned their respect." DJ nodded, satisfied. "Good. That's all I ever wanted." In the following weeks, DJ's condition worsened. The doctors confirmed what Mike had feared. There were no more treatment options left. The cancer had spread too far. But DJ didn't want pity. He didn't want people to feel sorry for him. He wanted to keep living, keep moving forward, just like he always had. He started wearing his uniform more often, even when he was too weak to leave the house. Whenever visitors came, he greeted them with a salute, his badge gleaming. "I don't have bad days," he would say, smiling through the pain. "We just keep on rolling." One day, DJ had an idea. "Dad, I want to do something." Mike leaned in. "What's that, buddy?" DJ took a deep breath. "I want to thank every officer I can. I want them to know how much they mean to me." Mike didn't hesitate. He reached out to local police departments, letting them know about DJ's wish. The response was overwhelming. Departments from all over sent letters, badges, and challenge coins. Officers lined up outside their home, taking turns, shaking DJ's hand, thanking him for his support. One officer knelt beside him. "You know, DJ, we're supposed to be the ones inspiring people. But you've inspired all of us." DJ smiled. "I just wanted to do my part." A few nights later, as Mike sat by DJ's bedside, he noticed how peaceful his son looked. The pain had taken so much from him, but never his spirit. "You tired, buddy?" he asked. DJ nodded weakly. "Yeah, but it's okay." Mike swallowed hard. "You did good, son. You made a difference." DJ's fingers curled around his badge. "That's all I wanted." The next morning, DJ was gone. He had passed away in his sleep, his badge still clutched in his hand. The funeral was attended by hundreds of officers, agents, and supporters from across the country. The Secret Service sent a delegation standing in formation to honor the boy who had inspired so many. President Trump sent a letter calling DJ a true American hero. As Mike stood by his son's casket, he placed DJ's badge on top, his hands lingering for a moment. "You'll always be one of them," he whispered. And in that moment,